Welcome to the Mukilteo Football Show. My name is Miles. The Baltimore Ravens go down to New Orleans and defeat the Saints in the Superdome. 27-13, I believe, was the score. And I've just confirmed, yes, it was. Quiet crowd for the New Orleans Saints. You know, maybe it's just the way ESPN had the stadium mic'd up, too. I know that can differ from network to network, but it just seemed like a more hesitant crowd. Sure, we got guys dressed up as the Pope and the Cardinal and people, you know, screaming for the cameras, but the crowd itself seemed to be less of a factor. The type of crowd that you would have if Andy Dalton was your quarterback. The Ravens just handled this game. I mean, the Saints and especially the Saints offense at no point threatened to make this a game. In fact, if the Ravens safety, Chuck Clark, doesn't assume that Juwan Johnson is out of bounds and stop playing, then the Saints don't have a touchdown in this game at all, and Dalton's stat line looks as bad as he played today. There's Kamara out there, there's Olave out there. This is not, I don't want to say the word acceptable because that makes it sound like I have some standards that I want to see on my TV, and I'm not like that. But this is not, the surrounding cast is not to blame here. Andy Dalton and the Saints offense, something is wrong, which is funny because the Saints offense had been rolling through even injuries to everybody, including Kamara, earlier this year, and it was the defense that was struggling. Now the defense is playing well, and they played pretty well today. I thought they held Lamar Jackson in check as much as you can, but they just got nothing from the Saints offense. Great day for the Ravens, though. Ravens flock, let's fly. Because they had a bunch of injuries. They were missing, Mark Andrews. They were missing, obviously, Bateman's out for the year. But they really had none of their opening day skill position arsenal out there. And they still pulled it off because Lamar Jackson is there. Not to say it was comfortable. The broadcast did a good job talking about how the Ravens just somehow seemed to let teams back in this year. It was hard to get to a point where you could sing. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. The Dandy Dawn. Joe Buck did give us a version of that. Aikman gave us the one in the Rams game. Joe Buck gave us the one which was turn on the lights and get ready for Sports Center. Must have been a different Willie Nelson track that I have not heard. I like that. I'm not making fun of that. I love that they do that. Great day for the Ravens. Roquan Smith, newly acquired from the Bears. He had a couple of come up and meet Kamara at the line of scrimmage and stuff him, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. That's going to be a fun linebacker duo to watch. And the Ravens are going on bye now. They are a serious, legit contender for the 2022 Lombardi. Kenyon Drake, running back, had some burst. 26 touches, 109 yards. Justin Houston, veteran pass rusher, 2.5 sacks. He got the tipped interception. Houston got that interception, and then Kenyon Drake, 9-yard run, 5-yard run, 3-yard touchdown to basically seal the game. This is great for the Ravens. That specific thing, the turnover, and then the running the ball and just punching it into the end zone, that's what the Ravens couldn't do when they were blowing leads to the Dolphins and Bills earlier. And then the Deshaun Jackson side note. I mean, who cares? Deshaun Jackson asked out of playing for the Rams last year. I mean, he's washed. He got one play in there. He gets a hamstring injury. He'll probably go to IR. That's Deshaun Jackson, at this state. Lamar Jackson, though, he had a good day. Pretty fun to watch. As I was driving home from work today, actually, and getting ready to watch Monday Night Football, it's like, hey, you get to watch Lamar Jackson today. That's cool. I state it all the time, but these superstars, these wonderful primes, you lose it eventually. Don't take it for granted. With Cam Newton, I always loved watching him in prime time, and I always appreciated it because, you grow up thinking Barry Sanders is going to play every single Thanksgiving forever, and then now think about what you would give to sit down and say Barry Sanders in his prime is playing today. Lamar Jackson, this is so cool. He's so good. ESPN showed the graphic because he's starting to put up like this historic start to the career stuff just because the weird shape of his career. They showed that no player in NFL history in any 4-year span has had 100 passing touchdowns and 4,000 rushing yards. It's incredible. And then he passed Steve Young to become a top 5 all-time rushing quarterback this game. And he's only 1,600 or 1,800 yards behind Michael Vick. So the question is not is Lamar Jackson going to hold this record? The question is how far will Lamar Jackson go up the rushing career leaderboards? Mukilteo Football Show. The show is football everything. NFL history, legacy, ups and downs of a season. Follow us at MUK_football on Twitter or YouTube. Subscribe, share, review on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. We have shows Monday after Monday Night Football, Thursday after Thursday Night Football, and Sunday after Sunday Night Football. And now that Week 9 is in the books, let's talk some winners and losers of this mid-season point. And check out our episode yesterday, the Sunday Best Awards. Kirk and I went through a couple of awards that are just wildly named, but check out the Boston Celtics Shaquille O'Neal versus Houston Rockets Dikembe Mutombo Award to see who won that. Check out yesterday's episode, Week 9 Sunday Best. Today, we're doing winners and losers. Let's get to the winners. Joe Mixon, Bengals running back, scored 5 touchdowns against the Carolina Panthers. Surprised me, but because we've had a player do a 5-touchdown game in each of the last 3 seasons. But Joe Mixon is the 9th player in the Super Bowl era, so since 1966, to have 5 touchdowns in a game. 10th if you count Ricky Watters in the 94 divisional playoff game, which I do. Why should the playoffs not count? It's even harder. But isn't that a low number? Mixon is only the 10th? It seems like we've just had it over and over again lately. We had Clinton Portis in 2003, Jamal Charles in 2013. Those are like the high games on the hill. Those are the only 2 for those decades. Portis was the only player to score 5 touchdowns in a game in the 2000s. Jamal Charles was the only player to score 5 touchdowns in a game in 2010s. So 1 per decade. Now, we had Alvin Kamara in 2020, Christmas Day versus Minnesota, 6 touchdowns. We had Jonathan Taylor versus Buffalo last year in his crazy 200-yard, 5-touchdown game. And now we have Mixon versus Carolina. So 1, 2, 3, 5-touchdown games. 171 yards, too. So this was a great fantasy football day. It was one of the legendary fantasy football days that Mixon has put together. It was higher than Jonathan Taylor's Buffalo game last year. Not higher than Kamara's Minnesota Christmas Day game, though. And not higher than Jamal Charles's wonderful performance against the Raiders. I had him that year. That was a great day. What's this really Mixon domination, though? I don't know. It felt like Bengal domination with Mixon kind of coincidentally getting all the touchdowns. I don't feel the same way about this performance as I did about Jamal over the Raiders, or even like Le'Veon Bell over Buffalo, or Kamara in that Minnesota game. But Mixon is a winner. 16 touchdowns last year, and then he only had 1 touchdown through the first 5 games this year. Now he's up to 8. Back on pace. All right, next winner. Kirk Cousins bringing back the "you like that." I knew he remembered. Kirk, my brother, and I touched on this in yesterday's episode a bit. Go check that episode out. It was good. We kind of floated around every single Week 9 game and giving out awards. But what's funny to me is Kirk Cousins was getting... they had like 7 points. The Vikings had like 7 points against the Commanders, down 10, going into the fourth quarter. It looked like Kirk Cousins was just going to fall flat on his face in Washington, the team that he, had this long, drawn-out 3-year process, being franchise tagged twice. Looked like Washington was going to get a laugh, but no, Kirk Cousins got there, help of Justin Jefferson, of course. And it was, you like that? What? You like that on 3? You like that? And then he's like wearing all the players' chains and with his shirt off in the plane. And the Vikings are 7-1 and they're feeling great. They're big winners. This was huge. The team like gathering behind Kirk Cousins. This is a big deal. I think this is gonna sustain. I believe. Sometimes I love analytics. I love analytics, but I don't agree with the fact that sometimes they discount that type of stuff, momentum. Like, have you ever worked anywhere? Workplace morale matters, man. It matters. All right, next winner. Raiders wide receiver Davante Adams. Probably not feeling like a winner since the Raiders suck, and they lost to the Jaguars. But he got his 79th and 80th touchdown. And since Derek Carr and Adams, he got nothing else to do, might as well keep getting Adams touchdowns because he becomes, first of all, the active player touchdown leader at 80. And he's only 30 and he's looking fresh. And he's got his best bud Derek Carr there. If they can both stick it out in Vegas, even if they're losing, as they did on Sunday to the Jaguars, the chance for Davante Adams to get to the 100 touchdown club. So he joins the 80 touchdown club, which has 66 players. Only 25 players have got to the 100 touchdown club. And I feel like Adams has the chance by getting out of Rodgers as Rodgers implodes and on to Carr for his last couple years of his prime. We have seen a couple of runs, but we haven't seen a player get to 100 touchdowns in a while. Adrian Peterson got there in 2015. Larry Fitzgerald got there in 2016. And Adams is the closest right now, 20 touchdowns away. Antonio Brown, he was up to 88, LaShawn McCoy, 89. Gronk was at 93, but their certainly touchdown days are done. Can Adams get there? Mike Evans at 79, Henry at 77. They've got a shot as well. Then there's Zeke, Kamara, Hopkins, Kelsey, Tyreek are all 10 behind. But I don't know. This is fun. I just watching Adams get to 80 touchdowns. I was like, hey, he could do this because he looks crisp. Maybe they could do what they did in the first half and keep doing that, Raiders. Throw to that guy. All right, let's get to the losers. Linear sense. I mentioned this on yesterday's episode a little bit, but these mid-season weeks, this November, early December timeline, don't try to make sense of stuff week to week. You got to take it as kind of a 6-week chunk and then evaluate it. Now, I know that's not possible to do. That's not how we consume football. And the fact that it is week to week is part of the fun. So, but I'm just saying, things don't make sense and don't try to pretend that they do. PJ Walker last week in week 8 wrecked the Falcons, made some times, looked like he maybe was an up-and-comer, like, oh, maybe he's handing off to Deonta Foreman, who looks good, like fire on the ground, just getting 3 touchdowns. They face the Bengals, who were just helpless against the Browns in week 8, just giving up everything. And then the Bengals defense rocks the Panthers to the point that they have to put Baker in the second half in week 9. That doesn't make sense linearly. That's because it's not. NFL is about matchups, and it's difficult to predict because it's not just matchups that you can quantify. The sample size is too small. Injuries are what they are, and matchups and player types are varying. All right, next loser. The announcers for the Dolphins and Bears game, Trent Green specifically, he wants the Dolphins to run more. Numerous times he brought it up. The Dolphins only have 61 yards rushing. I thought they'd take this time to work on the run game. Oh, then the Dolphins only have 83 yards rushing. That's just not how they're built. Jeff Wilson and Mostert were doing fine. Yards aren't the measure of performance, Trent Green. I mean, if you're throwing at 39 yards to Tyreek Hill and the next play's an 18-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle, those yards just, there's no more yards to go. There's no more yards to run for. Like, that doesn't mean that you're a worse running team. It bothers me because he kept saying it over and over again. They scored 35 points. It's like the announcers, like, conservatism is absolutely insane to me. It baffles my mind. And it's the opposite of my pet peeve where it's like, you need to run more. What helps you run more is first downs, right? Like, if you need to run well, they should be saying. The run game is always treated like there's some kind of magic bullet that's just not being used enough. And the run game's, like, inefficiency is never criticized. Maybe the run game should be on blast, not treated as a magic bullet. But hey, Trent Green, he did do me well in fantasy one year, and then not well a different year, back when Trent Green was a quarterback for the Chiefs. I had come down on opening day, weirdly slept through the kickoffs on opening day, which is kind of weird considering how obsessed with football I am now. But I came downstairs. There's no red zone or anything. I don't think I had access to the internet, or I probably did, but I wasn't using it for football. And so I come down and I see the ticker on the bottom. It says Trent Green in stable condition at the hospital. Not doubtful to return, not questionable to return. Stable condition at the hospital. It's like, whoa, what happened? That was when he had a big concussion that knocked his helmet off. And, he probably thought, gosh, I wish we just handed it off more. All right, Lex loser. For the second time in 3 weeks, we'll close with the Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are in the losers section because of a Monday announcement. In week 7, it was because they benched Matt Ryan in favor of a late-round rookie, Sam Erlinger. Now they have fired Frank Reich after this week. Actually, in week 8, they fired their offensive coordinator. I just didn't mention it. And they're just cleaning house. It's really weird what's happening in Indianapolis right now. In my opinion, all the moves seem curiously curated to encourage chaos and a losing season. Like Irsay's painting that tanking masterpiece to hang up next to the 2011. Oops, I guess Peyton Manning can't play. Wink, wink. We better do Curtis Painter. Wink, wink. I know there's no reason to justify that. And I believe that Irsay, like, truly wants to win games. But my tanking, like, take on this is not to say that Jim Irsay is a bad owner or a bad person and that he's trying to do something malicious. It's just that it's worked. Like, think about it. The Colts' worst seasons, 97, when Jim Harbaugh couldn't do anything, even though he had Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison, and the Colts had made the playoffs 2 years before, they ended up with number 1 pick to get Peyton Manning. In 2011, Peyton Manning is done. He's getting this thing. They turn to Curtis Painter. They get the number 1 pick. They get Andrew Luck. And those are the 2 most successful stretches in Colts history. The years after that. So, just saying, it works. It works. The weird part, the masterstroke part of the tank, and I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek, is the hiring of Jeff Saturday, former center for the Colts, for those Peyton Manning Colts, the first coach hired without any college or NFL head coaching experience at all since Norm Van Brocklin back in the 60s, man who still holds most passing yards in a game record. I guess it's a bit of nostalgia. The interim coach doesn't really matter. They have Gus Bradley and John Fox both on the staff. I didn't see this coming for Frank Reich. I don't know what it's going to be with Jeff Saturday. It just feels like a little piece of nostalgia, like I said. I'm absolutely fascinated by this. Maybe it just makes everybody feel good for the holidays. Jeff Saturday. He was there for the great years as a Colt franchise. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Frank Reich got the short shift here, though. I don't think he should have been fired. And wherever he ends up, I think that's going to be a good hire for that team, whether it is a head coach or offensive coordinator. I think it'll be a head coach. I really do. All right. I'll be back Thursday. We'll be previewing Week 10, getting into the second half of the season. My name is Miles, and good night.